Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good early morning to everyone that is joining us here on our webinar for the month of April. It's April 25th. We are talking about the future unfolds, the strategic perspectives on print in 2024. And we have a distinguished panelists that are up in literally all hours of the day and the evening. But the nice thing about it is that we are all on the same day today. It's not usually, when I'm in the afternoon talking to our friends in Australia, they're, always in the future being the next day. So today is actually a day that we are all on the same day. So my name's Tread Foreman. I am with the North American group for OnPrintShop, and I'm going to help out and host along with Hammett. I'm going to let our distinguished panelists introduce themselves, and then we will start to jump in. And this is going to be fun because it's a conversation today. This is just talk. This is, my favorite topic that I love to talk about is, talking print. And so this is actually the first time I've gotten to meet Arnold and John. So we're going to be able to have a great conversation related around, what's going on in the printing industry. And I think we've all been able to see, I've been to a couple of the early season trade shows. We have a huge trade show that's going to be coming up. We'll talk Drupa a little bit, which is coming up here in the next couple of weeks. All leading into kind of everybody back into talking about, what's print. I think the world of COVID has kind of left us behind. I did a webinar, actually, John and Arnold, I don't know if you got to see, I did a webinar very similar to this back in February, and I had groups from a couple of our customers, larger customers in the US, along with a marketing group from Rico USA. So from a manufacturer's perspective, and we all really talked about the fact that COVID has kind of left us behind. So let's talk about who's on this webinar so far. So I just told you who I am. Hammett, I will let you introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. Good morning. My name is Hemant. I'm senior consultant at OnPrintShop, and along with Trent, I'm going to moderate this session. And we have panelists, John and Arnold here. Thank you.
So John, Arnold, let's get an introduction. Tell us about yourself, and I'll let you two, whether the Frenchman or the Scotsman wants to go first.
Well, I'll be kind and I'll let Arnaud go first.
Okay, so I'm Arnaud Mazon. I'm part of the Data Solution Group now. You see the two mentioned, so the logo of Galilée and the name of Data Solution, because Galilée joined Data Solution Group since 2 months, so it's quite new. So Data Solution is a group of 360 people, a little bit more than 40 million of turnover. Specialized in what we call solution, so the integration of solution for communicating companies, the one for who marketing and communication has a significant impact in their business model. So of course, like all the print industry, and we are integrated on PrintShop now since 3 years, I would say, and with several customers that we will talk about during this conversation, because there is interesting things to learn regarding this experience, and happy to be with you today.
Beautiful. I really like that, because I got a few questions I want to be able to dig in for you, which is really nice, especially from that Central European place. And so, John, the expat, I know many Europeans, and they all live in Australia or the Singapore area. So, I heard you talking about a little bit earlier. The weather's a little more inclined from the not even from the Highlands of Scotland, but the weather's a little more inclined in Perth, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I think it's true to say, Trent, that us Scots get around the world quite a bit. Thanks to you and Hemant for the invitation today to talk to you guys and to be a panelist on a webinar. I'm really excited to be here and have a chat, and hopefully have a good discussion. Scotsman, moved to Australia 12 years ago, and I've got to say my wife and I really love living here. It's a new culture. At least they speak English. Unlike us Scottish people, we don't really speak English all that well, so I'll try and slow down for the group. But basically, I've been around this print and sign industry for around 30 years now. And I've noticed over that time a huge change from when I first started to now. But the one consistent thing that I've always liked about what I do is I always like to try and solve problems for myself and for others. So came to Australia, had another business here doing wide format print and signage, went really successful, and we seemed to gather quite a lot of trade customers in that time. And what we found was that a lot of our problems that we had with customers was around customer quotations. And that's where we first came across the OnPrintShop's solution. And what we realized pretty quickly is that it's a solution that really added a lot of benefit to our business. So over the last few years of using the system, I've now migrated out of manufacturing, and I'm now working with print and sign businesses here in Australia to offer solutions to help improve their business, both on the front end of the business and the back end solutions. So that's really my background and what I'm doing now for the next year or so in Australia.
Beautiful. And you know, I'm realizing that, you know, part of also didn't get a chance to, I like that. So both coming in, you know, we're talking about connectivity. We're also talking about, we're talking about connectivity. We're talking about an actual, you know, user there in the print and sign world. A little bit more on me. So I came from, you know, starting out, I came from the world of Ricoh. So I was actually, you know, with manufacturer in the early days of digital production. So, you know, the early 2000s when I started with them. You know, moving into wide format, I actually took over and built a print shop with a buddy of mine. So, you know, we took web to print and how to grab that order capture piece, looking at the B2C, you know, versus the B2B world, and, you know, from a digital quick turnaround, you know, wide format, you know, centric place as well. And then I've been in software for the last 7 years or so with, you know, talking about with web to print and, you know, MIS development, things like that. So I'm really excited and very sorry that I'm not going to be able to get to, I think Arnold, you're going to be at, I've heard, I think you're going to be at Drupa. Am I correct? Be able to meet the guys. So I was hoping, sorry, I won't be able to meet you there. We have attendees from all over the world. I've already seen Cape Town, South Africa, and a lot of others that are checking in here on the webinar. A couple of housekeeping notes as we kind of start to get started. If you have a question, I'll pop open that question module and ask away. We have our team back at OnPrintShop headquarters. They'll also be able to help answer those both on the chat, and we'll also try to answer a lot of those live and online. And the question is, what are we going to talk about today? And this is going to be the fun. So we've got an agenda, but what I love about this type of webinar is that, you know, we can get the conversations rolling and be able to really talk about, you know, what's going on inside of the industry. So we'll talk about how we're faring in 2024. I would love to get y'all's input. You know, we understanding, you know, not just North America, South America, but also, you know, from that European standpoint and from that to, you know, Australia. I love that Australia's a huge print market. You know, John, as you talked about, you know, I know a lot of printers, and, you know, actually to several printers from the Perth area. We may have to talk and play the game of, you know, who you know a little bit later. Yeah. We'll learn about, you know, what are the growing print segments, because we have seen a lot of that, modern technical, you know, tech trends in printing, how to adapt to customer expectations, and then understanding that customer focused approach, and you know, then, you know, be able to answer a lot of our questions. So that's where we'll start off. We hope everyone is going to be able to get something out of this today, which I like. So let's start with the priority list. And I know I didn't get a chance to join when we kind of did a little pre-round of this earlier in the early middle part of last week, and 1:30 in the morning. I apologize. My alarm did not go off to get set up. But let's start with the dynamics and the differences, talking about, you know, analog to digital. And, you know, I actually have had a lot of conversations about this just in the last couple of weeks. We have I went to the International Sign Association, the Sign Expo was there in Orlando, Florida, back just a couple of weeks ago, and then also, you know, talking with a lot of the D-Scoop community at their Edge event, which we had people from all over the world with a lot of HP users, and that was becoming the question of getting from analog, or let's call it big iron, traditional press, and moving into digital. So I'm very curious as to what you guys are seeing in this from where you are. Yeah, Dylan. Yeah, this is a jump in and go scenario. So whoever wants to jump in, it's a discussion, which is what I like.
Yeah, well, I think it's true to say that probably since COVID, it's a huge sea change of operations in the industry. I mean, the change from analog to digital. I mean, digital print now is becoming much more common than it was previously. And I think that's really at the behest of people wanting things quicker, more dynamically. And I think it's true to say that over the last few years, with perhaps some cheap money in the marketplace, a lot of printers have been diversifying into this marketplace. And I think customers now are much more demanding in this area as well. So be able to respond quickly to this is a key dynamic.
Arnold, well, a question for you. You talk about that. Is it more on? You think it's more on demand? I mean, nobody. I mean, we had a material shortage, in COVID. Mm-hmm. So if I'm looking at this, getting away from large run stock and warehouse, pick it in, more into just on demand personalization. I mean, is that the way you would kind of would see it?
Yes, if I may, yes, it's a part of of what we can see. I will say, not a real recent tendency, knowing that the fact that the runs are going less and less in terms of quantity compared to reducing this quantity and having a more diverse type of production. It's something that we see since, let's say, a long time. With all the digital presses that come in the production, with the fact that there is a difference with the stationery, what we see with business card and so on, and especially COVID was another milestone on that. There is less and less in this area. And then more and more on product that, as we will see later, will be used but in shortened quantity, allowing brands, for example, when it's about packaging, label, and so on, to change their labels or their packaging more often, especially if they reduce the quantity. And digital is perfect for that. So it's a kind of things that tendency that we see on the business.
Well, and I'll transition a little bit there, because you're talking about digital packaging and labels, and I think that's going to be part of the expansion conversation of what we're seeing jumping in. So, I mean, John, from a wide format perspective, which I would say packaging probably started as wide format, a flatbed, corrugated, however, but I think that's starting to become more of a commonplace, that you're seeing customers starting to kind of transition over to utilizing the same technology, the same equipment technology to produce, a packaging or any type of adhesive, whether it's commercial labels or, I would call labels even going into the sticker world.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Trent. I mean, certainly there's been a huge increase in the amount of label printers available in the marketplace in the last 2 or 3 years. And that's probably driven on the back of technology and also COVID. I hate to use the word COVID, but COVID.
You got to talk about it. Yeah, you've got to talk about it.
I know. It changed a lot of the print marketplace, and everyone at home trying to think, what can I do to try and make some money? Let's do some short run, products, short run. Yeah, so that whole marketplace really came alive in the last few years, and certainly I know a lot of companies here in Australia who have invested heavily in this technology. To not only to the short run market, but also for that sort of larger run market as well. And I think going back to your previous webinar, and one of the things that I picked up on that is the ability to now tailor each sticker singularly, rather than in the old days when you had LIFO printing, you had one design. And I guess that gives clients now much more flexibility in the marketplace to service both short run and large run clients.
Well, see, like I said, I think, and Hammett did looked at a lot of these. These are kind of his points that he did the research on, the priority list. And I think they all start to kind of intertwine in there when you talk about, exactly what you said, you're going from analog to digital. Now, when you're talking about, you're ganging up and running, multiple jobs. I mean, every job could, variable data is now turning into the big key point there. But, Arnold, sticking in your world with Galilee and talking about, connectivity, I think, and I want to talk about labor, because I'm really curious at kind of how the labor market is looking in both there. This was a big conversation in our last webinar, was how to find good people. So, but it all turned into, workflow and automation. So using your technology, different technologies, finding the right fit in technologies. And I think this is where, this is what you guys deal with on a daily basis. Am I correct?
Yes. And it's also driven by what we just said, meaning that more digital production, shortened quantity, means that you have to absolutely automate as it can be automate your production, because in order to remain profitable, if you have more order to manage with less quantity, the key is, of course, to be able to automate and making sure that each order finally costs the same than if it was a bigger one, as soon as it's a smaller one. And that's where the digital transformation of the production are definitely going through the ability to create the workflow that will take place to what in the past you can manage by hand, and automate all what can be automated, knowing that, of course, the ability we have today to manage and expand the type of automation that we are able to deliver is each day more important. And so that's typically what you have in front of the evolution we are previously talking about. And we especially also see that with the online printers, because they aggregate more and more orders and have more and more appetite to automate and to deploy workflows.
And I think that's big. And I'm gonna re-quote a friend of mine who was on the last webinar, Mark Little, who's with Global Marketing from Rico, and he says, when you're thinking about automation, it doesn't have to be the big picture of, oh, I never touch the job from the time the customer submits it all the way until it comes off the printer. No, it's little small, find something that is a manual and repetitive that you can automate so that becomes easier, and find those little automations, those little efficiencies that then start to turn into a larger piece of efficiency. Because I think you're right. I think trying to do more, increase that profitability, but doing more with a fewer set is key in all of this.
Yes, and automation is exactly what you told about. In computing, the automation is related to the repetitive task, and so it's tracking the repetitive task that allows to automate this task. And you also totally right on the fact to say that it's typically if I get one order that have to be renamed in order to be sent to the appropriate workflow, then in the past I had somebody who was writing on the physical paper or renaming file. But today we can take the file, the name of the customer, put it on the name, putting the date on the name of the file, some attribute regarding this type of job, and then send it to the appropriate hot folder that will automatically send it to the appropriate production workflow. So that's exactly the type of way to see the automation, tracking the repetitive task and automate them.
And John, on that thought and talking about that, because especially in wide format, with RIP software and, which kind of can vary between different, I'll bring in web to print here. it's not just one kind of software. It's the integration and the connectivity between, you know, how many different types of software would you say is available or is inside any, let's just say any given print shop?
Well, that would depend on the print shop and their experience.
That's a loaded question, is what it is.
Yeah, I guess that's it, trying to put a square box into a circle, isn't it? Look, my experience in this sector is actually having a business and running a print shop and trying to find these solutions. Is you go through these kind of multiple channels of trying different things. And in the last company that I was part of, we probably had an MIS system, an accounting system, we'd have an ERP system, we'd be an online portal, and RIP software to control all the different printers and cover management. So when you push all that together, and I talk to clients and I say to them, hey, look, we can help you solve this. They go, oh, how? Because it looks so hard, but that's part of the issue. That's part of the challenge of what I love and because of what I do with clients is trying to walk them through it. It doesn't have to be this difficult because I've been there and I've had that experience. So I understand that sometimes it comes across to a lot of people in the print industry, it's just too difficult. And especially if you're at a smaller size of business, but you don't have the resources to throw and hopefully something sticks at the wall. So I agree with you. Trying to minimize as many of these systems as you possibly can is a huge challenge. And dare I say it, that's why I love using OnPrintShop, because it does pretty much most of what we need.
Well, I was going to let you say that before I jumped in.
That's okay. Yeah, and again, that comes from experience of trying out other systems. And look, I've not been down the route of multiple integrations with multiple platforms, but what I do know it's possible. And I guess having the team behind you there at OnPrintShop can do all that for you. But certainly on the basic level of production management, that's the biggest challenge. Is how can you take something from a front end customer inquiry all the way through production? And then beyond that point, I guess it's another conversation, but that's a bare minimum. I think these days, those are table stakes now to have a print side business. You have to have some front end portals and some sort of automation.
Well, as we kind of transition into kind of the next, as we start talking about looking at key challenges in 24, and Hammond, I do believe we have a poll because this is an interactive webinar. We want to hear back from you. So I will let you guys set the poll up, and we'll ask some questions. I'll let you describe, what are your top business challenges in 2024. So that's the poll. We'll give everybody about 30 seconds or so to be able to start on that. And I think this is what's nice. We're talking about discussions in truly 4 different parts of the world that are all sitting in different places. So I think challenges will vary, but overall I think you're going to see it's what I always laugh. You can talk print in Perth the same you can talk print in France, and the same you can talk print in South Arkansas and in India. A lot of the languages start the same. Everybody's worried about how do I get as much through my presses as possible. Color calibration. Finishing products, all that, the same conversation goes around universally, which is what I really love about this industry. All right, let's give it a couple more seconds and let's take a look. And we're going to share our results. Looks like, labor, I don't know if everybody can see it, labor and shortage, looking at about 25%, 50% rising substrate costs. Maintaining profitability, that's universal, as I talk about supply chain. So beautiful, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here. That mirrors about what we see in our research. Printing United, the Printing United Alliance. This was coming from their survey last year, and I know they'll talk about this at Printing United, which is going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the U.S. coming up in September. But that rolls right along with what we're talking about in big challenges in 2024. I again, say the C word, But you talk about, just a couple of years ago, and this is where the automation and especially the short run piece comes in, substrate costs and supply chain, just being able to get, Coro and even just regular uncoated paper. I mean, here in the US, uncoated paper became a premium, for about a year and a half or so, because the mills were not being able to keep up with the type of demand. So, right, being able to, that if the analog to digital switch wasn't in full swing, I mean, people were really trying to jump on that, because again, trying to get that short run, digital, or that short run variable was huge in all of that. So I'm kind of curious, and especially on the labor, I'm curious, both in the Australian market and in the European market, from a labor, what's the labor environment look like?
Since COVID again, there's been a huge sea change in people's understanding and perceptions of having a job. And I think a lot of people actually lost a job during that time. So there's probably a sea change of mentality. Whereas people now, I think once we're out of that period of time where maybe people were trying different things, they've kind of fallen back into the labour market again. And labour market now isn't such a problem as it was, say, in the last 2 years. But the problem you have now is that labour, I think people now have to be much more able to do a lot of diverse jobs, not just one job. You're not working in pre-press, you're maybe working in artwork creation, you're working in print management, job flow. So people now have to be a much more able to change into different job types. But certainly last year or so, labour costs was a major factor. It was just hard to find people, and certainly down here in Australia, because of the drop in migration at that time, it was really hard getting good people. But that's changed, I think, in the last year. There's much more migration happening here now in Australia, and labour's not so much of an issue now as it was in the last 2 years.
How hard is it to find someone that wants to work on be a good pressman? For me, that's the biggest barometer.
Yeah, I think those guys are really hard to find, and certainly I've got a few clients who still work in the LIFO market, and they're scared now to lose their printers because they know they just can't replace them. But certainly with digital technologies now on the rise, and not needing to have that same amount of, dare I say, being a craftsman, the ability to take on board information quickly, and with modern technology now, doesn't mean that you need to have those skill sets anymore. So it's much easier to, I guess, find people and to onboard them into your company than it was previously.
So Arnold, when you're talking about connectivity with different printers and different customers, going on what John's saying of the diversifying an employee, and I think I had a slide in a statistic talking about a graphic designer is no longer just a graphic designer. They need to know how to manage. So when you're connecting a lot of these different systems, you work with OnPrintShop and connect it to different others. How do you see that, now you start talking about key people in the print shop that need to know not just web to print and not just graphic design or pre-press, but they also need to know, pricing and estimation and things like that?
Yes, it's typically the kind of move we saw since, let's say, a decade, and since let's say the digital transformation is becoming more and more in direction to connectivity, workflow, automation, and so on. And seeing young people arriving with typically these skills, you have more and more young guys that have 2, 3, 4 years of study with them and arrive with these skills. They are as well a good user for, let's say, as designer, but they also know to deal with internet technology, with integration of systems, with management of files, and so on. And that's typically the Swiss knife that printers need to find in order to embrace, especially when, in France, we have a statistic that say that 75 of the company as printer are company of 10 people and less. Okay, so which means that in this type of organization, of course, you can't have a specialist for each segment.
Yeah.
So the key is to be able to find this talent, and so on the production world, it's more the historical way of this business to consider the people that can make different things. But for the digital part of the company, it's quite new, as I said, since a decade, let's say, that these young people arrive and with this ability to manage a quite wide variety of knowledge to embrace the different ones you have. And if you consider typically a solution like OnPrintShop, you have to deal with the storefront, you have to deal with the parameter to organize your production, to make your workflow, to manage your orders, to send that to production, to deal with your the way you will manage the files. And it's typically where it's not just one skill that you know, but an understanding of what the production is and how you will automate this production and deal with a different system that will interact for this production.
And do you think that is where, so, obviously, I would even say profitability, on our slide here is probably, would be in my thought process, but is that where you really see the profitability, from what you're already doing coming from? Because, margins, profitability margins in print start to, they're shrinking in some cases, based on how the marketplace is selling. You've got, larger shops that are just trying to get, that are able to put more capacity on, onto their presses. But, so by automating and taking out, I guess, not taking out labor. I don't want to talk about taking out labor, but putting labor to use in a better, in a better place, and automating those little pieces. Is that where you see, being able to squeak out a little bit more profitability in any job or in any, in any overall run?
Yes, definitely. I mean, again, as you were saying previously, we are talking about in automation, limited as possible repetitive task. And if it's repetitive task, there is very often no value in this task. Instead of they have to be achieved. So as soon as you are able to cut this repetitive task and make people be able to be focused on more valuable tasks, then of course it will help in your ability to maintain your profitability, knowing that beside that you have constraints that you can't deal with. So for example, the way the cost of the energy rise these last 2 years, especially I think, I don't know if it's just in Europe, but in Europe it become a quite super important problematic for printer when you know which quantity of electricity typically they need, and when the price were multiplied per 2 or 3, then it makes that you can't deal with that. So you better have to be able to make the rest of your production as well organized as possible, and in this area as automated as possible, in order to be able to deliver the best services you can and the best value you can. Because that's one of the area, and we'll talk later about that, that you can increase your business and make your business better.
I have a slide on that.
Yeah, because that's a key factor in this industry, and more the people can be focused on this side, better it is, of course.
I think that says it very, very well. And again, we talk about we're getting ready to roll into Drupa, and John, I got a question for you here in just a second, because that's the next thing is you got to talk about where growth is. But from an economic confidence standpoint, I mean, obviously it varies, based on where you are. And I think a lot of those challenges are going to have a lot to do with this. Supply chain, supply chain is going to be a lot different in many different places. I think that, I can talk a little bit on the North America market, that I think everyone's, pretty, fairly positive about, what they're looking at, over the last couple of years, and the forecast is high. Of course, we're, here in the North America, 2024, this is political season for us. So from a wide format signage, the mail houses, things like that. I mean, that there's money that will be infused into our economy, print economy, very, very easily. So I mean, that the forecast is high. You take a look at, of course, obviously, from Africa, which, coming off of COVID, which they were hit very, very hard with, the outlook is actually starting to go up. But I think overall across the world, around the world, and, when we talk about the Asia market, that includes that Asia Pacific. So that's the Singapore, Malaysia, New Zealand, Australia. I think the outlook overall is very, very well. But John, where I want to go with you on this is, the other piece of this is like, where profitability is also based on a lot of the growth. And if you can find, that extra market that not everybody's doing and introduce that to your customer base. So where do you see the growth coming, for this year?
Yeah, I think you're right, Trent. I think what I would say about this is, if you look at the sort of smaller, more traditional print businesses, I mean, people who do business cards and flyers and brochures, that market is definitely slowing down now quite a bit with online sort of digital communication. So I think it's been true to say that over the last 3-4 years, people are now been looking to diversify their product offering and moving more into sort of wide format signage, apparel, goes into those markets and label and packaging as well. So the biggest issue you have, I think, with clients over here is they have to make a decision: do they invest in capital expenditure and buying equipment and more personnel to run that, to run those jobs, or do they partner with other vendors in the marketplace? And what I'm seeing now is that there was a move probably in the last few years for people to move into wide format more so, because it was probably a bit more, dare I say, sort of entry level cost. But to really do labeling and packaging now and apparel, those are major expenditures. But clients are now, but clients are now much more demanding at the front end of the businesses. They want you to supply these products, So I think what I'm seeing now over here, certainly in Australia, there's much more consolidation in the marketplace for people crossing over, to sell products through into other businesses. So certainly labeling, packaging, massive market now, in the last 3-4 years. And similarly, large format and signage, it's been growing year on year for the last 5 to 10 years, I think it's fair to say, which is why I was involved in it. And apparel, people now want fast fashion. People like Cornet out there now doing these machines that are tremendous for doing, short run fashion wear, which is phenomenal. So, for me, I think label packaging, large format signage, those are the two major growth areas that I'm noticing here in Australia.
Well, and I would even go the signage route. Like I said, I was just at the ISA Expo, so we were let's talk about what I would consider traditional signage, which would be Coro printing, the yard signs, the banners, the vinyl print, but even getting into channel letters and true architectural signage and things like that. But let me ask you this, and Arnold, same question for you here. When you talk about the growth, not just necessarily in the specific segment here in the industry, but I would even say, John, you just said it. You get you guys in large format and signage, for a smaller commercial shop to be able to diversify and want to get into that, the entry point could be too much. I would almost put another, I would put another one of these on here that says, let's go into more wholesale, selling that excess time and space and start working with other, could be like-minded printers, could be, a different segment of market, but hey, it's like, if they're willing to sell your product, start. I've got a lot of friends that do a lot of wholesale business and a lot of trade business because, they can do that packaging. They can do that label and packaging, and they've got the capacity, hey, I mean, pick up an extra shift and run an extra couple hours worth of work. That there's nothing bad about that.
Yeah, look, I think it's true. See, I mean, I'll go back to the last 3-4 years here in Australia. There's a lot of cheap money in the marketplace for people to invest in capital expenditure. And the problem now, of course, and that's fine then, but now that the market's changed, interest rates are on the rise. They'll maybe come down a little bit now, but the cost of business now, as Arno was referring to, from energy pricing to substrate costs to maybe higher labour costs, you really need to diversify your offering. So do you have the same capital to go and buy a label printer or a large format, wide format sign machine and all the finishing that goes with that as well? Or is it better to partner up? And one of the benefits, I guess, of OnPrintShop is the fact that you've got a vendor tool in the back end of the system that allows you to partner up with clients and maintain that workflow all the way through without touching really that job. I mean, to me, that's a win-win situation. And I think that for me, that's been the biggest benefit of the system that we've used over the last 4 or 5 years.
I'm gonna move because that transitions. And Arnold, this is coming back over to you. But you talk again, you guys are a technology consultant. You guys do a lot of connection on diversification. What is we're entering new market, trying to get in a new market, trying to get in a new product, new service. Capital expenditure coming up in this year. Is that investment in technology, or is that investment in that new piece of equipment to get you into that new market? I mean, tell me what you're seeing.
Definitely in terms of technology, because as you were just talking about, the ability to deliver a new offer without having to invest in all the systems required or the machine required to handle it is key. Because as we know, the less expensive sell is the one you are doing in an existing customer. And more you can expand your market share in the same customer environment, and better it is. And so that's exactly another point where with OnPrintShop we have something quite unique, is the ability to expand your offer, but at the same time deal with supplier in order to make that in a trade approach that can allow you to expand your ability to deliver your customer, knowing that the way that the relation in between dealer and supplier is now in place, allow to make a margin in between both, and having a quite win-win situation, meaning that you can expand the quantity of things you are selling to your customer, while you are not taking too many risks in terms of obligation to internalize new system, new machine that we know sometimes are quite costly, and at the same time develop your business, which is of course much more tangible than what we saw in the past, where sometimes printer were integrating systems and systems, and as we were saying, sometimes the margin in this industry are quite thin, and it can be quite challenging to expand your production capacity because you have an opportunity with a customer, but not necessarily in many customers. And
there you go.
You are taking is times too important, where in this approach you can expand.
Well, and that goes along. So I transition here because that goes along with talking about the investment and development. And what I like about this is, you take number 6 down there, the third, highlighted box. Suppliers, even as much as printers, they're starting to look at that online sales platform. I mean, the U.S. market, North America, I mean, it's becoming pretty mature. And if you did not have an e-commerce online or web to print platform of some kind, now I would say, your friends would probably look at you like you're falling behind. But I think the same is to say in a lot of the other markets as well. It's it comes to those, whether you're using it for B2B, corporate portals, which in my in my concept, I always say that's how you really make money with web to print, is you've got those corporate, those B2B portals. But even we said this in our last webinars, that the idea of, and I'm going to use the V word in the US, which is Vistaprint, people thinking that, I can't be that retail, that online. No. you can still take care of your customer. You can still offer up those repeatable processes. Here's that order you did 2 months ago, and here's an easy way to reorder it. So yeah, the online sales platforms. I mean, John, you've been using OnPrintShop for many years, and it's been an increase to your business.
I can just talk to that, Trent. My inspiration for the online marketplace was based on, in Australia, we've got a major player here called EasySigns, which has now moved into the US market. And that was my inspiration to think, you know what, that's such a great system. Let's go and see if I can build that system. So when I first looked at the marketplace and spoke to a few developers and so on, I think I was quoted Australian dollars, $250,000 to build a system similar to EasySigns. And I thought, well, I don't have $250,000, but what I did have was some experience with Shopify. So I thought, let's try and do it on Shopify, and maybe spend 3 to 6 months trying to do that. But the problem you've got is with our marketplace, it's such a variable thing. You're trying to have a system which will encompass short run, offset, signage, wide format, packaging, labeling. It's too hard. And that's when I came across OnPrintShop, I went, oh my God, this is it. This is what I need. And I think in the previous webinar, I think the chap from Rico had mentioned that it was perhaps too cheap. And coming from a Scotsman, that's not a bad thing, sounding too cheap. So I can say that. But what I can say is that the system is affordable for pretty much every user in this industry. So I think it's true to say now that if you don't have an online platform of some description, even if it's just a basic entry-level Shopify site for basic products, you really are sort of living in the dark ages now, because clients at the front end pretty much demand now that point of contact. So I think for me, that's going to be one of the major sort of challenges for me this year, is to convince people in this industry you really need to start moving towards this, or, as I say, you will be left behind, unfortunately.
And Arnold, that's probably what you preach, on a daily basis too, correct?
I mean, it's even more interesting like that than that, because you have less and less to preach because it's more and more obvious. Meaning, what we especially see on the last, let's say, 2 or 3 years is a very important switch in between all the usual CMS, e-commerce CMS that were used to deliver storefront, in order to move to platform like OnPrintShop, where in fact the storefront is one of the feature. It's the mindset is really to not consider that the key is to have a storefront like in B2C to, as you were saying, face Vistaprint, but it has the appropriate solution that allows you to digitalize your sales process. And the way you can, as we were saying previously, expand the quantity of order that you are able to aggregate without having in front of that an expansion cost to manage each order. And that's where it's super important. It's because if you want to make something similar with, let's say, Magento than today OnPrintShop is proposing, it's just impossible. It costs arms.
Arms.
Plural. And
it doesn't matter if it's in Australian dollars, in euros, in pounds.
It's the same currency, plenty of arms.
Plenty of arms.
And something that from the very beginning we identified as very valuable in OnPrintShop is his ability to consider what you need to address, let's say, all the different type of marketing materials that you can imagine. That it can be, commercial, large format, photo, canvas. Having the ability for each type of print material to deliver the appropriate feature to sell it, or let's say to catch an order on that, but then to produce it and to manage the way it will be produced. And that's where it's very key, because where in the past printer had to spend a lot of money to develop in, let's say, standard CMS, now they can reduce dramatically the cost of deploying a solution and being focused not on developing, but on setting parameters to adapt this platform to their business. So, which at the end will provide a value that is much more tangible to satisfy the different goals they have, from catching the order, organize your production, manage the fact that for part of the production it will be through supplier, and then making sure that your customer is permanently in touch with the production that is done for him.
I'm glad you say it like that, because that kind of pulls into our last little point here. It is talking about the customers. It was a great transition into, you know, that customer-centric approach. And I think with today's print buyer, you know, the traditional print buyer has evolved greatly, and I'd say just in the last 5 years, to where, you know, we call it the Amazon effect. I mean, you know, Amazon rules the world in terms, well, you know, Alibaba, Amazon, you know, the major players of being able to say, you know, I need this, I can buy it on my phone and I can get it and I can have it delivered to me. So being able to be very customer centric, but not lose that personal touch. And I love to tell customers that even though you're looking at automating, you know, you want your customer to go onto the OnPrintShop, you know, storefront and order their product. That doesn't mean you don't need to stop talking to your customer. It just means it gives you a chance to have a different conversation with your customer. So now we can, you know, the business cards, the brochures, the, you know, the very repeatable business that you can automate through that. Now I can have the conversation with them about maybe more profitable, you know, customized, you know, product that I'm trying to do for them, you know, so I can start to diversify, introducing new products to them. And John, you know, coming from, you know, in the white format piece, you know, again, automating the different jobs that come in, but you still, you know, especially corporate customers, you want to build that relationship with them, but you want to make it easy for them to come and find you and get what they need.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Certainly, and when I first started to use the system, one of our biggest customers or B2B customers or wholesale customers. And essentially for them, there was only once they knew that we could supply the product, all they wanted to know was how much was this going to cost us to buy this product? You know, is that a negotiated price up front and so on and so forth? But every B2B customer has a different buying experience. You know, some maybe buy more costly or cordoplast, as you call it in the US, or some more buy ACM or banners. What I love about the system for OnPrintShop was the ability for you to tailor pricing to each individual customer or each individual product. So essentially, if you're a wholesale customer, you can log into the system, put in your job spec and get the price almost straight away, which means then that they can then give the price to their customer and win that business. So for me, prior to that, we would probably have for every quote inquiry, maybe 4 to 5 touch points of conversation via email or text message or phone call, or even drop it into the factory. So having the ability to give that customer ease of pricing and then to actually physically upload the order to the system automatically is a huge win. So to go to the point of customer service, most B2B customers only want to have the cost and how long will it take for that job to be manufactured. And of course, with the system, you can set it up so that you can basically, every time it moves through a different part of the business, it automatically sends an email to them to say, hey, you're in pre-press, hey, you're in print, hey, you're in finishing, and hey, your job's now ready to be sent out or picked up. So I think to go back to the automation piece, it ties into the customer service aspect as well. So people now are just really far too busy to want constant phone calls and emails.
Same thing, Arnold. I mean, you know, from that automation, it gives you the ability to have a different conversation with your customer.
A combination in automation and online platform, meaning that again, the aim is not anymore to just have a storefront. It's to have a way to interact online with the customer and provide him a more permanent ability to be in touch with the order is sent, and the way this production is moving forward. I mean, being able to know that the order is sent to a pre-press, then sent to a press, then sent to transport, make that without having to have many people to keep the customer in touch with what currently is happening in the production. You are able to deliver this information. And then what is also super important, and I don't know how it's outside of, let's say, France or Europe, but in the past, there is a culture on the print industry where there is not a lot of relation with customer, not a lot of salespeople, not a lot of customer care, and so on. And that's also an interesting evolution in this area, and that you saw more and more features that are delivered in this area. I was talking recently with one of the consultants we have in France specialized in web to print, and who was saying that more and more he implemented, or the customer are looking for to implement in their online platform, chatbot or chat,
yeah.
chat, and a way to allow the customer to directly be in touch with people in production, and knowing that there is not a bot, there is real people that answering the request. That's very interesting, because from a not super customer-oriented approach, we see more and more now moving forward in a totally customer-centric approach. And that's, I think, part of the fact that, as we said previously, if you want to expand your market share in a customer, and especially in B2B, then the type of quality of services you have delivered have to be aligned with what they are able, or what they are used to know usually in their life.
Well, and you said it a minute ago, and particularly in France, most of the print shops are 10-ish or so people. So you're right. You still have to keep that customer relationship and do that, but you've got to do it with, a graphic designer who is also probably, hey, I know how to run a cutter. So having that dedicated salesperson in a lot of ways, you don't have. So, gentlemen, I think we're coming towards the top of the hour. I'm looking towards any questions that have been answered. I think we've asked and answered a lot of that. And Hammond, I'll let you take in, because I know we're getting ready to set up for Drupa. We've got some new things that we're going to be talking about. We have a new release that's going to be coming out here very, very, very soon. I appreciate both of you in the conversation. This has been absolutely wonderful, and I think we've picked up on a lot of different insights. Obviously, if you're in the Central European marketplace, you're in the Central European area, we want to make sure you're talking to Arnold, because from a connectivity standpoint, taking on OnPrintShop, being able to work with it inside your culture, your infrastructure is a very, very integral part of what's going on. And then from my friends down under, that are all there, John can definitely be able to talk to you about how all this plays out. So Hammett, this is what we talk about: how to expand into these very print segments.
Thanks, Trent. As initially we discussed about in terms of the challenge, like in terms of the labor shortage, maintaining its profitability, and in terms of diversifying the business, one of the major challenges most of the print companies are facing, that they need to manage multiple solutions. Okay, so either they are offering the commercial product, wide format, or they are managing the different types of B2B or different sales channel, B2C, B2B resale. So most of the time they are managing the different types of platform. So in that case scenario, what exactly they need some kind of single platform which can help them in terms of manage the different sales channel, different types of print product, different types of your options, where they can just streamline the complete order automation for their different products, customers, and it should come to the single point where they can manage everything collectively. And moreover, it can be integrated with the their tools also. So here we, as OnPrintShop, we have created a complete end-to-end solution which will provide you a complete responsive platform where you can manage the different types of sales channel, whether it's a B2C, B2B resellers, or your different types of print store branch. And moreover, we have created a product specific pricing engine, which will allow you to offer the different print products also, whether you're offering stationery, marketing, promotional, everything can be managed directly from here in the single platform itself. The new OnPrintShop platform will enable you to offer all varied range of product, whether it's a custom size, standard size, everything can be managed. So as a plan of your business expansion, if you're thinking to offer like your signage or the like a sticker label, all those products can be managed. Not only you can offer, you can just provide more personalized experience to your customer. So during buying process, they can see the actual the 3D preview of the products also. Like if anyone is buying business card or any complex product, they can see how exactly it looks like while designing. So as you talk about like your customer centric approach, so OnPrintShop solution will give you a more advanced version where you can provide more buying experience to your customer. And for B2B customers, as highlighted that B2B are each and every B2B have their own buying experience. So in that case scenario, you can provide B2B specific storefronts where they can see their own print product pricing and everything. And for each and every B2B, their data will secure. No other person can see their data. And all the customer channel can be managed from the single admin console. You need not to manage the different types of your separate solution. And if you are using any kind of third party, MIS, accounting, or any workflow, further we have Ready API which can be further integrated. So overall, you will have end-to-end automation starting from receiving the order till like your delivery. So the major challenge which printers are facing in terms of maintaining the profitability, it will help them to minimize the human touch during the ordering process. Okay. Now we are glad to share that this year we are going to participate in Drupa. We are in hall 7A. You can just meet us and D21 booth, and we will have the entire senior team member where you can book your appointment for one-to-one discussion with our solution expert, and you can just discuss how exactly the team can help you in terms of boosting your ROI. Yeah, thank you everyone.
Beautiful. And with that, my coffee is finished. So therefore, I'm going to go back to bed so I can get up in a couple hours. Arnold, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate if you are in the, especially in the Central European area, you want to talk about connectivity and how OnPrintShop can help, make sure you reach out to Galilee and Arnold and his great team in the Australian, New Zealand markets. Please, reach out. We'd love to reach out, talk to John. This recording is going to be sent out to everyone who attended the webinar, and for those that have picked this up a little bit later, John was a great resource in wide format and be able to talk about how using a platform like OnPrintShop has been able to really increase. To my friend Hammett and to the OnPrintShop team, we want to thank you for allowing us to join here on this webinar. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of the evening.
Thanks, Train.
Thank you, Train. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.